Hi, in this assignment you're going to be creating a stocking sculpture. This is my example of a stocking sculpture that I painted with cherry blossoms. And the materials needed for this assignment are a nylon stocking, 18 gauge wire, a cardboard base of 4 inches, masking tape, and pliers. So a nylon stocking is a sock that women typically wear. They're called knee-high stockings. They go up to your knee. They rip very easily, so just be careful as you're using it not to rip it. So you're going to need one of these. You'll need a pair of pliers that has the cutter edge so that it can cut the wire. You're going to need some masking tape to connect it all together. And you're going to need a piece of wire. This is 18 gauge wire. Gauge refers to the thickness of the wire, which we're going to learn more about when we start doing our wire sculptures next week. So the amount of wire that you need is the length of your arm times 2, or your wingspan. So I'm just going to keep rolling it out until it reaches all the way across from one of my arms to the other. So it's probably about 3 feet wide. And I'm going to use this part of the cutting tool of the pliers to cut it. The next thing to do is to gather all your wire up, and we're going to make it into like a loop. So these two ends right here, just cross them over so it makes an X, and then go ahead and twist them together. You can use the pliers if you want. If it grips it better, you can kind of use those. Personally, I think using my hands works just as well. Once you have that attached well to each piece is connected to the other piece, then take your base and you're going to go ahead and begin by putting this on top of your base. Have your pieces of tape ready. So what you want to do is just get some tape, kind of have that ready to go. Since you only have 2 hands, it's easier to have your tape ready ahead of time. Okay, so I'm going to take the part that's kind of pokey, these pokey pieces of wire, flatten it as best as you can, tape it down. Doesn't matter how pretty it looks, this is going to be hidden because your stocking is going to be on top of it. By the way, if you're not sure why we're doing this, check out the underside of my stocking sculpture. You see that how this was made was I have a piece of cardboard which I taped the wire down to, and then inside of the stocking is the wire, which I'm going to show you how that makes a sculpture. After you tape this down well, you're going to want to go to flip it over. You're going to want to take the wire and crisscross it here so that that mess is now kind of on the bottom. You're going to tape this down. Again, this time it would be helpful to use a longer piece and just wrap it right around your cardboard. And make sure you use enough to really secure it well. Again, this is going to be inside the stocking, so after it's painted, no one will see this part. Okay, so once I have that secured pretty well, I'm going to go ahead now and kind of make this into a really long loop. Okay, and the next step is to take the stocking, gather it up in your hands like this. If it rips, those rips will just become part of your design. You will not get a new stocking. as I went out yesterday and spent $30 on stockings. So if you rip it, you'll just have to make it part of your design unless you want to buy your own stocking. So I'm going to put this over the whole length of the wire, and then taking the corners of the end, go over the corners of the square. So now you can see the bottom looks like this, and the top looks like this. So now the idea is to sculpt your wire. So you're going to go ahead and bend your wire in different ways within the stocking, and the goal is to get your stocking to stand up without tipping over. So you're going to just keep bending it, twisting it. You'll notice that on this sculpture that I made, it's got a lot of volume to it. There's a lot of different planes that I was able to paint, because when I did this, I used an extra piece of wire in my stocking. So you can use 2 pieces of wire, just loop them onto the cardboard like I showed you with this. It'll make your sculpture have more volume, so it's not just so flat looking. So you can manipulate the wire around, try to create something that looks interesting and at the same time balances. So here's what I have. Parts that are kind of saggy looking, you just kind of pull the stocking down a bit more. So these are the basics of how to create a nylon stocking sculpture. And again, a nylon is a type of a sock that women generally wear when they dress up. It's a type of a sock, okay? So on the bottom, make sure you do put your name. These are gonna look very similar until they're painted. So make sure your name is on there. Please write your period number so it's easy to identify them. If it's wobbling too much, just bend the corners in the other direction, and it'll help create stability so it doesn't wobble around as much. So this is how I started, and this is how I ended. You'll notice this is really hard now, because after painting it with several layers of paint, the stocking becomes really tough. So when you're ready, again, you're going to need these items: a nylon stocking, a piece of wire the length span of your arms, like the wingspan, from one hand to the other, stretched out as far as you can, a 4-inch cardboard base, tape, and pliers. In the next video, I will show you how to add the paint and that whole process.